Hey, my lovelies, welcome to this episode, our very first episode of What's on the Menu with Dr. Danny. Today, we're talking about your responses to the challenge food question. What foods do you find really challenging when you're trying to eat healthier? So we're going to talk about that today, and we're talking about salty, crunchy, carby foods. And I'm going to give you some great alternatives for that. But before we do, I want you guys to remember to like, share, and subscribe below. It really helps the channel out, helps get this information to people who need it and want it. And then we're going to spend some time today just showing you that food can be fun, nutritious, and tasty. So stick around. Some of the big challenges that you guys told me you were really struggling with in this category of crunchy, salty carbohydrates were things like French fries, chips, and popcorn. So today I'm going to give you 3 really healthy, delicious, yummy alternatives that are also fun to make to get you going in the right direction and help you through those cravings. We're going to make cauliflower popcorn, green bean fries, and then I'm gonna make some kale and beet chips. These are great, delicious, vegetable, nutrient-rich foods. So not only are they fun and tasty, but they're also very nutritious. All right, so we're starting with chopping up our veggies here, and I've taken the main core off of the bottom of my cauliflower. I just have a couple of tools. I've got a nice sharp knife, a good sized cutting board, and then I've got a bowl here for my scraps that I can put into my composter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out this inner core of the cauliflower, and then we're just going to break it up into smaller little cauliflower florets to get our popcorn cauliflower. And I've cut around that core and just kind of dig in there and start breaking stuff out. You can also buy these pre-cut, however, they tend not to last as long, and I've noticed that they're in the processing for those and the packaging means that you're getting a lot more chemical exposure. So to get the greenest, wholest, rawest food, I recommend you just go ahead and buy the cauliflower head, and you get way more for your money too. So I'm taking these smaller pieces here, and each one kind of has that tree look just like broccoli, and we're going to start cutting those off, ready to roast up. Let's get to our buddy kale here, and we're going to make kale chips with this. So what we want to do first is prep the kale itself. So this large spine in the middle, we're going to cut that out and just get all the good leafy goodness ready. And again, I'm going to kind of separate these into good chip sizes. You know, they don't have to be perfect. We want them just to be a good sized chip. And we're going to set them aside in a bowl similar to what we did with the cauliflower, and we'll get those dressed later. So, and sometimes you can just tear them right off. You don't have to get fancy with a knife. You know, part of the fun of this really is getting in and getting your hands into the food and literally playing with your food, just to get that great energy exchange. All right, so we're gonna make beet chips here. The first thing we wanna do is prep our beets. So what I've done is I've cut off the ends of this, both on the top and on the bottom. So we're gonna cut this little nub off, this little root nub. By the way, when someone refers to a beet root, this is the root, and these are the beet tops or the leaves. And I'm gonna do something else with the leaves that I'll tell you about in another video. So we're gonna cut these off so that we have a nice flat surface to work with, because we're gonna actually run this through our mandolin slicer to get nice thin chip slices. All right, so for our beet chips, we're gonna do something a little bit different. Now, you can slice these up with a nice big knife if you want. You wanna get good thin strips though for these chips. The thinner, the better. The crispier they will be if you want them a little thicker. They're not gonna be as crispy, but still delicious. So what I'm using here is a mandolin. This is just a little slicer, and we just slide it like so to slice up our pieces. I'm gonna set those aside here. And then as you get closer to the blade, there's a pusher that goes with this one that you just slice them right up nice and thin. Super simple, really fast. This takes no time at all. And you can do this same recipe with sweet potatoes, turnips, really any root vegetable. Once we're done slicing our beets, we've got all these lovely slices here. And we're gonna just let them drain for a little bit. These were nice, juicy beets. As you can see, it looks like a massacre happened in my kitchen. So we're gonna let them drain a little bit and then take them out and transfer them to a drier bowl where I'm gonna go ahead and prep them. Okay, so I'm so excited. We're gonna get started on the green beans. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna prep my egg wash. So this is a lot like making any kind of other fried batter. What I'm doing is just getting a little bit of chicken broth in here. You can use vegetable broth. You can use any kind of bone broth if you want to. And I'm gonna then put 2 eggs in here. And we're gonna scramble this up. Now you can also do this with milk. I've used coconut milk, I've used soy milk.
I'm slicing this on the lowest setting.
Of course, you can use regular milk, goat's milk, whatever, to make this, but you want some kind of liquid in with the eggs just to let it mix and become more of a solid mixture rather than beating the eggs, which tends to just have really runny yolks mixed in with the whites and they tend to separate. This kind of makes everything come together. So I'm just gonna grab my happy little whisk here. And I know a lot of people who put their seasoning in their breadcrumbs rather than in their wet mixture when they're making any kind of frying batter. I tend to do both. I'm really heavy-handed on the garlic in just about everything that I make. Not to an overwhelming point, but good heavy garlic. Not only because I love the taste of garlic, but also because it's so good for your health, particularly heart health, while I prep the beans. Now, I have just regular green beans here, and all I'm doing is kind of checking to make sure we don't have any dark spots or like these little stem pieces. Those I just take off. We're gonna throw that in the compost bucket. Now that we've got all of our popcorn cut up here, you can see we've got some larger pieces and some smaller pieces, just like we have with real popcorn. What we're gonna do then is toss this with some olive oil, some kosher salt, a little bit of garlic powder, and some Romano cheese. Get it nice and evenly coated, and then we're gonna go ahead and spread them out on cookie sheets. And I've got 2 cookie sheets here lined with parchment paper. I'm using these kitchen sheets. For my smaller pans, I tend to use that. And then for the larger pans, I go ahead and just buy the roll. These pre-cut sheets for these smaller pans are perfect. I actually tear them in half, and they're great for 2 different pans. Saves me a lot of time and actually money in the process. I really don't measure a whole lot when I'm cooking. I just kind of go by the feel, and that looks good, and then, you know, taste. So I'm going to drizzle this with some olive oil to start, and I may need to add a little bit more as we go, but you want to go ahead and give it a good mix and zhuzh here, as Rachel Ray would say, and get everything coated really well. And then we'll add in some salt, and again, I'm just kind of going by eye. I'm not doing a whole lot of measuring. This is not a scientific approach here, and that's the fun part about cooking, is that it really is not a science. There's no wrong or right way really to do stuff. It's really about playing with your food and finding what you like, and I think that's the thing that people overlook most when it comes to healthy foods, is they maybe had something early in childhood or at some point and just decided they didn't like that particular food because the experience that they had with it prepared a certain way didn't suit them. I'm going to go ahead and get my cheese in here. I've already put the salt and the garlic in and kind of got that all mixed up. And I am doing this kind of one ingredient at a time here to make sure everything gets evenly mixed. On the pans here, now I've just divided it between the 2 pans, and we're going to make sure that we have a nice even amount of space here. We don't want any big piles. We just want it nice and flat on. So here's our finished popcorn. Delicious golden brown, looking nice and flaky. This yummy cauliflower popcorn is best served fresh made, just like regular popcorn. However, it will last nicely in the fridge, and you can serve it cold for about 3 days. So we're going to give this a nice quick little toss here. We might need to add some more olive oil in. This seems to be soaking up the olive oil a little bit more than the cauliflower did. Well, there it goes. There it goes. It's going. And again, I'm not really measuring here, guys. I just kind of eyeball it. So start with a little bit. You can always add more. It's really hard to take stuff away. And I tend to taste my food a lot as I'm going through, you know. The great thing about these kinds of snacks is that you really can bulk prep these. So, you know, carve out a day, get the kids in the kitchen with you. They love getting their hands in the dirty food. The clean, dirty food. Getting their hands dirty in the food. And, you know, let them help you. Let them get involved. Let them play with their food. There is a difference in the energy we have with our food when we actually get in and do the preparation. And so when you have your kids help out in the kitchen with the meals, they have more of a vested interest in this and actually are gonna eat more often. Because here's the fun part. Like, as you're cooking, you gotta try this, right? We have to keep checking the flavor and making sure that's enough. And, you know, do I have enough garlic on that? No, it needs a little more. I'm giving it that. And let's go ahead and add the cheese. So I found, you know, especially with my kids and my grandkids, that if they're helping me make this food, especially the healthy stuff, you know, we're not just running through a drive-through. They love to sit down and eat this stuff. I gotta tell you, so my son, my oldest son, has 5 kids, and they're over at my house so often. And for the holidays, as a gift, for of the 5 of his children asked for aprons so that they could help me cook. And I think that's one of the best gifts that I could get, really, is to know that these kids are learning how to eat healthy and they're actually doing it and they're excited about it. Don't for a minute think that there is such a thing as kids food. Kids will go for that. This is a great snack for everyone, really, and the kids do enjoy this food. Got these all dressed and ready to go. We're just gonna spread them nice and evenly onto the cookie sheets, just like we did with the cauliflower. We want to have some spacing between these. Try not to overlap them. It doesn't have to be perfect. Nothing has to be perfect. Just good enough. And we're gonna get this in the oven. Now we are baking this at 200 degrees for about 45 minutes to an hour. Just depending on your oven and how it works. My convection oven tends to be a little bit faster, usually about 40 to 45 minutes in the convection oven. However, in the regular oven, I'm looking at about an hour. And I'm gonna go into my egg mixture here. I've thrown in some garlic and I'm gonna add some paprika. I'm gonna add a little bit of salt and some pepper to this. I'm gonna re-whisk it, and it's gonna go into, it's gonna go onto a plate, kind of like you would if you were making, well, anything fried. I've spread out my breadcrumbs here on the plate. I'm gonna go ahead and mix in my Romano. You can do Parmesan, you can do grated Asiago. You really can do anything you want in here with the grated cheese. I do recommend the grated cheeses. They're drier, they work better in our mixes. So we're gonna just mix that up, and I just kind of mix it up on the plate. It's all right to get a little messy. And then we're gonna take our egg mixture and put that on the plate as well. And so here's how this works. We're gonna have a dry hand and a wet hand. So the hand that dips the food into the eggs moves it to the dry plate, and then the dry hand takes and works the egg covered veggies into our dry ingredients and moves it to wherever we're going to cook it. Around, get them nice and coated and pick them up. We're going to shake off the excess, drop them into our dry mixture, and coat them up. Once they're coated, I'm going to pull them out of here. And I'm going to set them aside while we're waiting on our oil to... I've got about a half a cup of coconut oil in here, and obviously it's still solid. So we're going to turn this heat on and put it on about medium-low and let it cook up. We're going to let it get nice and hot. This has a low melting point, but it hits high heat pretty quickly. So we're going to give it some time to do that. Now that we've got our green beans nice and battered up, I'm going to transfer these to our oil, and I'm just going to let a couple of drops go to see how our oil's doing. It's looking good, so we'll go ahead and drop the rest of those in there and load everything in. We're going to fry these, just going to drop them and let them do their thing for about 2 minutes till they get nice and crispy. When we pull the green beans out of the pan, we're gonna just let them drain for a little bit like you would for French fries or anything else. I'm using one of those flour sackcloths. I love these. I use them for just about everything around my house. You can also use paper towels, but these are delicious. They are nice and green. That's the kind of color that you want, really brightly colored with a great crunch. Listen to this crunch. Thanks for joining me on this very first episode of What's on the Menu. So grateful for everyone who gave their input and talked to me about what their challenge foods are. Stick around. We are going to have a series here on these challenge foods, so I will continue to put these videos out and give you guys what you've been asking for, help you work through that. Before I leave you today, I just want to remind everyone the importance of playing with your food. You know, in the video I talked about how we sometimes don't like a food that we've only had prepared one way. We decide we don't like a food because we had it once and we just didn't like it. And the truth is that we didn't like it prepared that way. So I want to encourage you to play with your foods. Try it prepared different ways. Try a food you wouldn't normally try and try it prepared multiple ways to find something that you really enjoy. Until next time, be kind to yourselves, be kind to others.